A filmmaker, photographer, author, and world traveler, this woman's life is full of mystery and wonder. What's her name? Let me tell ya. Hi, I'm Shawn Baker and welcome to this episode of What's Her Name, where we celebrate the forgotten female pioneers of film history. Today's episode is on the one and only Aloha Wanderwell Baker, a woman with an interesting name and even more interesting story to tell. And before you ask, no, there is no relation. If only. Aloha is known as the female Indiana Jones because apparently women can't just be themselves and have to be the female version of male characters and celebrities, but also because of her globe-trotting expeditions and wild adventures. Aloha was the first woman to drive around the world, and she did this starting at the age of 16 years old. In this ultimate road trip, she visited 6 continents and drove almost 400,000 miles in a Ford Model T car, taking plenty of photos and videos along the way. But how did she get here? Aloha was actually born Idris Galcia Hall on October 13, 1906 in Winnipeg, Canada, and she was the daughter of Herbert and Margaret Hall. Herbert was a British Army reservist and was killed in action in Ypres during World War I in 1917. Following her father's death, Idris moved to France with her mother and younger sister. While there, she enrolled in a convent school, and this really was not the place for her. Young Idris had a tomboyish spirit and was heavily inspired by the tales of adventure in her father's collection of books when he was a kid. In 1922, at the age of 16, adventure finally called to her when she read an ad in the Paris Herald that reads, "Brains, Beauty, and Breeches, World Tour offer for lucky young women," which immediately caught her eye. This life-changing advertisement set her on the world-traveling and filmmaking journey we know her for today. It would also lead her to cross paths with Captain Walter Wanderwell, who led the expedition and eventually became her future husband. Walter was a Polish immigrant and was born with the name Valerian Johannes Pieczynski around 1897 and was an experienced seafarer and traveler. He was even briefly jailed in the US for being suspected as a German spy during the war. He founded the Work Around the World Educational Club with the then-wife Nell Miller to promote world peace in the newly formed League of Nations. Nell and Walter soon split up and led competing expeditions around the world. Walter needed a new crew member to assist with his expeditions and one that was fluent in French to be a translator, which made Idris a perfect candidate. He was immediately struck by her adventurous spirit and hired her to join his team. It was here where he gave her the stage name Aloha Wanderwell. The pair traveled around together, fell in love, and married, and had 2 children, Niall and Valerie, who were born in 1925 and 1927. Not even childbirth could slow Aloha down because she continued her travels in filmmaking. Aloha quickly became the star of the expedition and filled many roles throughout the process, including filmmaking and editor. Their first film, with a car and camera around the world, was a constantly evolving production unlike anything else at the time. The film followed the crew's journey from 1921 to 1929 and consisted of footage of their time in North America, Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. During her travels on the Wanderwell expeditions, Aloha experienced firsthand many key historical events such as the opening of King Tut's tomb, the economic devastation in post-World War in Germany, and even Mussolini's black shirts marching through Italy. According to her website, she found that last one terribly exciting. Not quite the phrasing I would use for a fascist takeover, but I guess hindsight is 2020. The film was financed while they were traveling, and they were developing and editing it while on the move. While this is one of their biggest films, it unfortunately is not easily accessible to watch and requires an appointment with a researcher and a trip to the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. Sadly, we do not have the budget to head out there to check it out, but what we know about the film is that it was fascinating to watch at the time, and it takes viewers on a world tour unlike anything anyone had seen at the time.
That amazed people that somebody so young would be traveling as I was. Very superior feeling.
Her other films, The Last of the Borobos and Flight to the Stone Age Borobos, are the first existing video footage of the Bororo Indigenous tribe and the chronicles they encounter with them. Her final film with Captain Wanderwell and the first one to introduce sound, River of Death, is one of her few films that is easy to access online. River of Death is narrated by Aloha herself and follows their adventures through unexplored terrain in the Mato Grosso region in Brazil. Their goal? Find Colonel Percy Fawcett, a British explorer who had gone missing in the area hoping to find the lost city of Z. While that mission was unsuccessful, they returned to the US with the footage they used for the River of Death. Walter and Aloha spent weeks with an indigenous tribe in the Amazon and explored the customs and ways of life. Although this is her first sound film and is fully narrated by Aloha, I almost wish it was silent sometimes. It seems all and well, but then she'll say something like this.
Note the muscular development of these women. All physical and no mental work is their creed. These natives are living some 10,000 years behind our time, and in an absolutely primitive manner.
Or this.
As I sat and watched the savages continue their hopping and chanting, and listened to the eerie music, I could hardly believe that the scene before me could be part of this world.
Needless to say, this film is a bit dated, but it gives us an interesting look at the day-to-day lives of these people and the Wanderwell's experiences with them. Tragically, Walter never got to see the release of this film. Get your pinboards and red strings ready because it is time for a murder mystery. On December 5th, 1932, Walter Wanderwell was shot in the back and killed on his yacht named Karma by a mysterious man in gray right before a planned departure on a trip. To this day, a culprit has not been identified and it remains an unsolved mystery. There were several suspects involved, but none had been charged with the crime. Most notably, William J. Guy, a crew member for the Wanderwells, had attempted a mutiny during the South America expedition and was arrested for the murder, but was acquitted by the judge and jury. Aloha was never a suspect in the murder because she had a strong alibi. Aloha named Guy as a suspect and recounted when he came to their apartment and attempted to strangle Walter after an argument 2 weeks before the murder. In her testimony at the trial, she described a document stating that Guy and other members of the crew in the summer of '31 would no longer accept Walter's leadership. Walter allegedly kept this document in his wallet at all times, but it was missing after he was shot. She posed the theory that Guy had murdered him to retrieve the document, so it could not be used against him. But it remains unproven. After the murder scandal died down, she decided to marry another man, also named Walter, a year later. Aloha met Walter Baker in Laramie, Wyoming, and they were married on December 26, 1933. After the death of Captain Wanderwell, Baker became her new partner and they created their own films together. In 1937, they released their first collaboration film, To See the World by Car. In it, Aloha revisits a lot of the spots she visited with her first Walter and even recycles some shots from With a Car and a Camera Around the World. In 1939, Aloha released Call to Adventure, a memoir about her travels around the world. It contains first-hand detailed accounts of her early life and travels and is a valuable source of information about her. Aloha's filmmaking career continued for a little more than a decade after her book was released. Aloha and Walter Baker's next project together was Explorers of the Purple Sage, which was released in 1945. This film takes advantage of Technicolor and displays the natural settings lifestyles of Wyoming in beautiful detail. Along with Explorers of the Purple Sage, the Bakers made several other films released throughout the 40s and 50s, including India Now, Australia Now, Victory in the Pacific, My Hawaii, and Magic of Mexico. Her filmmaking career ended in the 50s, but she continued to give lectures and working hard on preserving her legacy and life's work. She spent the later parts of her life arranging her large collections of films, pictures, and artifacts, having them distributed in museums and archives across the US. In 1982, she delivered her final lecture at the National History Museum in Los Angeles alongside her films while in her expedition outfit in front of family members and guests. Aloha later passed away at the age of 89 in Newport Beach on June 4, 1996. Aloha had the unique opportunity to see some of the most incredible sights, being present for major historical events, and meeting superstars like Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks. Aloha's expeditions around the world gathered worldwide attention, and being the first woman to travel around the world by car is an amazing achievement on its own, and she should be recognized for that. The incredible effort that she and her crew put into documenting these travels and to show the world what they had experienced just adds to her already impressive legacy. I don't really think it would be that inaccurate to call her one of the first travel vloggers, but that would be very reductive of what she was actually capable of. She was a pioneer in independent filmmaking, and her films are still studied today as anthropological resources. Not only were her films unique, they were also an important part of history and an inspiration for future filmmakers. She proves that you don't need a studio contract or Hollywood's biggest stars to make an interesting film. All you need is a car and a camera. Her name was Aloha Wanderwell Baker. Remember it.